It happens hundreds of times a year. Humans and bears get too close. The result can be an assault, a break and enter, even a death. But who is guilty in these incidents? Are bears the problem, or are they being provoked by humans? To find out, these bear experts will investigate 5 cases. They're looking for clues, using science and bear behavior to understand why these encounters happened, what drove a human or bear to attack, and what humans should do to prevent dangerous bear encounters. By solving these mysteries, they hope to determine whether these events were actually bear crimes. Many of Canada's bear attacks occur in British Columbia. This is grizzly bear country. And in 2000, the McLeod Lake area of central British Columbia was the scene of a gruesome grizzly bear attack. The victim's name is Max Tiley. He is confined to a wheelchair from injuries sustained during the attack. Max doesn't remember how the grizzly did this to him, but his family is eager to learn more about what happened so others can avoid the same danger. So we asked 2 experts to return to the scene of the attack to reconstruct the events second by second. They hope to solve the mystery. Was this a predatory bear or one acting defensively? And was human error to blame? Jim Corbett is a senior conservation officer in southern British Columbia.
Well, usually when you rubber bullet,
if there are bear police,
take off for a while, or
he's the chief.
That was great.
He oversees 7 officers who investigate bear attacks. It's Jim's job to decide when a bear needs to be killed if it becomes a danger to the public. He has investigated dozens of bear attacks.
Well, looks like we got a bear track here.
Jim is joined by Lana Cerniello. She's a bear biologist. She specializes in understanding bear behavior, even why they occasionally kill. So Jim and Lana head to the scene of the grizzly bear attack.
The age of this clear cut is really good for bears. It offers a lot of security and cover.
Yeah, we're getting close to the area now.
Hey, here's a little black bear track, and it looks pretty fresh. Oh, there's a moose track, too.
Well, if we got that fresh of tracks, we better make a little bit of noise when we go on ahead.
For sure.
Scare the bears away. Okay. Hey, bear!
Hey, bear! Coming through!
This is what Lana and Jim want to avoid. Grizzly bears can reach 600 kilograms and stand 3 meters tall. They survive on vegetation like berries, roots, and some meat. In September of 2000, Max Tiley and his wife were driving down this old side road. Max is hoping to hunt some moose, but they soon see grizzly bear tracks beside some moose tracks.
Me, I don't want to get out because I'm scared. So I tell him I should stay in the truck, I said.
I'm just going to have a look up.
Unwisely, Max dismisses his wife's concerns. He decides to walk up the road, following the moose tracks, naively walking in the footsteps of the grizzly. But where was the grizzly? Lana and Jim search for clues to how it could have been concealed, unseen by the victim.
This looks like the spot the bear might have been just before the attack.
Could be a bear bedding area. So the bear was probably up there by the willows, and depending on the wind direction, he might not have had the opportunity to smell the victim, and if he wasn't making any noise, he doesn't have the opportunity to hear him until he gets quite close. So it's likely that he just surprised that bear.
Grizzly bears rely on their noses more than any other sense. They can smell a dead animal from a kilometer away, so they're used to knowing what's around long before they can see it. The next riddle is finding out where the victim was standing just before the attack.
I believe the victim was looking over the lake, perhaps looking for moose or moose sign, had his back to the direction that the bear came from.
Just 50 meters from his wife, Max Tiley stops to urinate. He has no idea that a bear is so close.
I'm not sure if the victim urinating had anything to do with the motivation for this attack. Bear home ranges tend to overlap each other. They're not territorial, but they do defend a personal space around themselves. And so if he's urinating, he's distracted, it gets within its personal space, and that could be the motivation there.
Now Tiley's enemy is physics. A man weighing 100 kilograms cannot stop a 200-kilogram bear that can charge at 45 kilometers an hour. Mr. Tiley doesn't remember much of the attack, but his body does. His hands show scars from jaws puncturing his skin. The injuries suggest Mr. Tiley may have held up his arm to protect his face from the bear's jaws. They easily tore into his hands. Mr. Tiley's face also provides clues. His face contains scars from his forehead being pulled down over his eyes. Designed for digging roots and ripping apart logs, the bear's 10-centimeter claws also attacked his face.
So the victim was taken down here. The bear bit him several times in the head. The investigators said they found blood all through this site. His wife up at the truck heard the yelling and screaming. She grabbed the gun out of the truck and some bullets and tried to come and help him.
But as Mrs. Tiley runs to rescue her husband, she gets the shock of her life.
Oh my God, there's a grizzly bear just ran towards me. I never in my whole life that I get so scared. And when I get back to the truck, there was no bear. And then I started hollering for him. I said, "Honey, are you all right? Honey," I kept saying, but nothing, just silent.
But where's the bear? Has it left for good, or will it return to her husband?
In this circumstance, the best thing you can do is if the road is passable, you get into your vehicle and you just drive your vehicle right at that bear. You honk your horn, you do everything you can to try to get that bear off the victim.
But Mrs. Tiley decides she can't reach her husband in the truck. The lake has cut a gully in the road. Mrs. Tiley drives into town to get some of her family and to alert police. It takes 2 hours to return. It's a risky decision. Her husband may bleed to death or be attacked again.
This bear felt threatened and was acting in a defensive manner. This was not a bad bear. It went and it immobilized that threat. And once that threat was immobilized, that was the victim, then this bear left and did not come back. And this is shown by the fact that the victim was left there for 2 hours and the bear didn't come back and did not predate on him at any point.
Before dark, we got back over there. Oh my God, he was still alive yet. He tried to talk, but he can't because his face was just bloody, and this is his skull here. It was over his eye. And those boys tell me, "Grandma, don't look at him."
Mr. Tiley survives his attack but is never the same again. Tragically, this terrible attack could have been avoided.
So this victim had seen grizzly bear sign on the road as well as moose sign, but because he was moose hunting, he wasn't thinking at all about the grizzly bear. He wasn't making noise when he went into the area. He wasn't worried about the wind, and this is probably what got him in trouble.
As humans, we're encroaching more and more into their habitat, and it's up to us to learn some basic bear behavior to avoid encounters with bears, and particularly negative encounters with bears.
You're right, because in this case, a good bear got involved in a bad encounter.
Grizzly bears can run 50 kilometers an hour, so there's no way to outrun them. But what happens when a black bear is the attacker? That's the question that takes Jim and Lana to their next case in northern British Columbia.
You going to mug me?
I'm not going to mug you.
Is that gorgeous or what, eh?
And I believe I can run a decent marathon.
Thank you very much.
Download Veely now.
In August of 1997, this holiday spot was the location of the most horrific bear attack in recent memory. A black bear attacked 4 tourists, killing 2 in just a few minutes.
To me, there wasn't a decision to be made, but to go try to help the person that was screaming like that.
Lana and Jim have come to the scene of the attack. Before the incident here, Lana had studied bears in this park and the risk of a bear attack. The Liard Hot Springs is a provincial park near the northern border of British Columbia. There are 2 heated pools fed by hot springs. The warm water allows this northern park to become an oasis of plants, attracting wildlife, including hungry bears.
How many people would have been here the month of the attack?
Well, the attack happened in mid-August, which also is a time that I identified as the peak visitor use plus peak bear use, so both of them overlap.
And this is where it happened?
Okay, let's get started.
Much of their information comes from the provincial coroner's report. It contains the basic facts of the case, but leaves many questions unanswered. The first riddle is why there was a bear so close to a busy boardwalk in August. Lana suspects there must have been food nearby.
I'm just gonna go check out the vegetation.
Okay, I'm gonna get a couple of photos.
Lana is searching for berry bushes, a staple of the black bear diet. Male black bears can weigh up to 250 kilograms, standing over 2 meters high. Bears can eat up to 20,000 calories a day as they get ready for winter hibernation. That's as much as 60 hamburgers for a human being. But Jim and Lana know that the black bear who attacked here was different. The bear had a problem. Winter was coming. To survive, the bear needed to put on weight for winter hibernation. And so far, it was 25 kilograms underweight. So on that August day, a hungry, desperate black bear found a berry bush of its own. But it wouldn't be alone for long. Over at the Alpha Pool, the McConnell family of Texas was enjoying a swim. After an hour, Patty McConnell invited her son to take a walk on the boardwalk, leaving her daughter behind. The mother and son arrived at the Hanging Gardens and stopped to look.
If I remember the report correctly, the mother and son were standing at the top of the Hanging Gardens, and then on their way back down, they saw the bear in this area here.
Unknown to the family, their arrival was noted by the bear, who probably smelled them first.
So, did the bear come up on the boardwalk, or did it come after them?
Yeah, made a woof noise down here, came up on the boardwalk.
When faced by a black bear, the best policy is to stay calm and never run. Unfortunately, the family did neither.
He yelled run to his mother, and they both started to run down that way.
That's never a good thing to do. That can really evoke that predatory response in an animal.
Most bears flee when they encounter a human, but sometimes bears attack in self-defense. The bear may charge at you and become agitated. Much rarer are predatory attacks when the bear treats humans as prey. Never run. And in a predatory attack, you should fight back.
So the bear rushed her from behind, knocked her down to the ground, and then it looked for a way to grab where it could kill her. And in my experience, that's what predators do. They catch their prey and get it so that it can't get away, and then they try and grab it somewhere where they can kill.
With his mother being attacked, the boy chose to stay and fight the bear. But can a boy defeat a black bear? A woman is being mauled by a black bear. Now her son decides to stay and fight.
He looked around the boardwalk and he found a stick somewhere out there. And he picked it up and he started to hit the bear with it.
Well, that's exactly the right response. You know, he had two choices. He could have gone back, or he could stay and fight. And what a brave little boy to stay and fight. So he was hitting the bear, and then he finally hit it in the snout and it backed off?
Yeah, once he hit it in the snout, it backed off momentarily. Unfortunately, then it redirected its efforts at the boy.
220 pounds on a 13-year-old boy is a lot of weight. It's really difficult to fight back in that position.
Yeah, when the boy woke up, the bear was chewing on the back of his neck. He could hear it.
Bears will eat almost anything. Their back teeth are flat and ideal for grinding plants. But their front four canines, each 5 centimeters long, are designed for sinking into flesh and tearing it apart. Once they start an attack, it's hard to stop them.
So as I understand it then, the mother's on the ground over here and she's completely incapacitated. And the boy is on the ground over here. He's got the bear on top of him, so he's lost his ability to fight back, but he's screaming?
Yeah, and the yelling and screaming were heard down at the Alpha Pool where victim number 3 decided to run up and help.
Ray Kitchen was a local truck driver. He left his daughter back at the pool when he heard the screams.
So the third victim came up the stairs here. He looked around, he found a stick. He started beating on the railings, yelling, rushing at the bear, trying to scare it away. He then speared the bear with the stick, where the bear let go of the boy and backed up. Then the bear came after victim 3 and he backed up. He was trying to get down the boardwalk. The bear took him down on the boardwalk. And then it dragged him off down onto the ground.
And the attack is not over. California residents Ingrid Bailey and Brad Westervelt are the next to be drawn into the attack. They are tourists on their way to Alaska.
Right when we got to the lower pool, we ran into a woman who was crying that they needed a gun and that help was needed. So at that point, Ingrid took off at a run and I followed after her.
Brad and Ingrid are joined by a third rescuer. Ingrid hopes to use her medical training to help the victims.
The third victim was no longer able to really actively defend himself against the bear. He was more sort of covering up at that point. He was trying to get up, and every time he would stand, the bear would knock him back down. Ingrid was shouting and clapping her hands, and we threw what little pieces of rotted wood we could find at it. Something was needed, either a gun or an axe, rocks, even big rocks would have helped, but there was nothing available.
Okay.
Brad agrees to leave the scene to find a weapon.
I gave up on trying to help the third victim when the bear picked the man up by the neck and shook his head a bit, and the man fell to the ground, missing a significant part of his neck. The bear then continued to eat the third victim.
Ingrid tries to help the mother. Suddenly, the bear leaves in search of another victim.
I glanced up just in time to see the bear just, inches away from
the woman's feet, and I scooped her up and pulled her a little bit farther up onto the boardwalk as the bear walked by. He then kind of took off into the woods, then later attacked a fourth person.
I'm not sure why the bear left victim number 3. It could have been because there were so many people coming now, and I imagine the scene would have been complete chaos, or if it went to try to retrieve the earlier victims and sort of bring them all together.
The bear's rampage continued. A fourth victim was bitten on the thigh trying to run away. Finally, a tourist arrived with a rifle and killed the bear. The attack was over. Victim number 1, Patty McConnell, would die that afternoon. Her son would survive her, and victim 3, Ray Kitchen, would die on the scene. The fourth victim, Ari Vandervelden of Calgary, would survive the attack as well.
I think this was clearly a predatory attack on these people. I've just never seen a bear act like this, where it just couldn't be chased off.
And there are no hard and fast rules in bear encounters, but in most cases, that bear would have backed off and gone away. But all bears are not killers, just like all humans are not killers.
And the people did mostly the right things. They fought, they hit the bear, they threw things at the bear, they yelled at the bear, they did all the right things. It's just in this case, it didn't work.
This type of attack is almost unheard of, and ironically, black bears are Canada's smallest. The largest are polar bears. They can weigh over 700 kilograms and dwarf any human. And now Jim is traveling north for a case where polar bears are the suspects. For his next case, Jim is traveling north to polar bear territory. Jim is heading for Churchill, Manitoba. Each year, hundreds of hungry polar bears migrate right past the town. They are waiting for the ice to freeze so they can spend the winter on the frozen Hudson's Bay hunting seal. So they walk past Churchill hungry, not having eaten for months. Jim arrives alone. Polar bears are quite different from other bears, so Lana has suggested he work with a different bear expert here. But Jim's first stop is to meet with the local conservation officer.
Jim Corbett, I presume?
Yeah, Richard.
Richard Romaniuk. Rick Hildebrand said you'd be coming to Churchill, so we're just getting ready for our Halloween patrol, so we might as well hop in the truck and get right at her.
Here in polar bear country, this celebration is a bit different than in the south. The problem is that the polar bears sometimes wander into town, especially at night. And to keep them out is everybody's business, from the smallest child to the police and conservation officers.
I guess it wouldn't be a good thing to be dressing up as a polar bear.
No, we discourage the kids from wearing anything white like a ghost or a polar bear.
Normally, kids aren't allowed on the streets after the evening curfew. But on this snowy Halloween night, the authorities make an exception. So the police and conservation officers keep searchlights on the lookout for any polar bears who might do some trick-or-treating of their own. As Churchill grew, polar bears became more tempted to enter town. Dealing with these giant carnivores has been a serious issue since the 1960s. Polar bears are the world's largest land predators. Standing over 3 meters tall, they are built to kill. For Jim's investigation, he needs the help of bear expert Chris Morgan. Here in 1977, a 14-year-old boy was walking to school after lunch, alone, during polar bear season.
Well, the boy was walking down the road here. He's looking in the pond over there, and then when he glanced off to his right, he saw a polar bear just over the hill here.
If he was walking down here and the wind was in his face, the bear wouldn't have caught his scent. So it could have been that the bear wasn't aware of his presence until he got right to this point.
Polar bears use their noses like we use our eyes. They can smell meat from 3 kilometers away and beneath a meter of ice. They rely on huge nasal cavities attuned to the smell of prey.
And often what they'll do, of course, just like grizzly bears and black bears, is try and get around downwind from what they're trying to identify. So that could well have been what he was exhibiting there.
I just happened to be walking, and I just out of the corner of my eye, or the right side of my eye, I looked again and stopped. And I froze. I've never experienced a feeling like this in my life. I had this flush feeling go right through my body. I believe people call it cold sweat. The whole posture of the bear, the standing in front, lifting its nose up, sniffing the air, bending his head down, bobbing up and down, and making that huffing noise. And, well, I just didn't know what the heck to do.
So the boy froze right here in the road. He didn't know whether to go home or go to school. Finally took off running as hard as he could go towards the school.
And I guess at this point the bear's senses are heightened. It's wondering what to do, and seeing a boy run in front of him at speed, the bear may have just triggered into a chase response.
All I can think of is feet don't fail me now, and I ran as fast as I possibly could.
So as the boy was running down the road, he heard a couple of cracker shells go off behind him. Apparently some RCMP had driven up, they'd seen what was going on, and they fired a couple of cracker shells towards the bear.
Unclear really as to whether the bear had entered this chase response mode and was chasing the kid down the street, or if the alien sound of these cracker shells, which would have made a bear very stressed at that point to hear them, if that had actually sent the bear running instead.
While I was running up the hill here, I was giving her as fast as I could, and right beside me, I kid you not, this bear ran right by me.
Well, I see some similarities between this bear, what it did, and what a black or grizzly might do. If they're surprised, they can act defensively, or it can turn into a predatory attack.
But of course then with polar bears, they differ from grizzly bears and black bears a little bit because they're so highly carnivorous in nature. You know, 90% of their diet is meat, unlike grizzly bears and black bears. But of course it's good for people around here to understand that it's never good to surprise a bear, never good to suddenly encounter a bear.
I can't agree more. And at this time of year in the fall, when there's so many bears around, this boy shouldn't have been walking along the road all by himself in a deserted area like this, where he might encounter a bear. Should have been riding in a vehicle, or at least walking in a big group.
Today, school children are safe from polar bears because everyone is on the lookout. Doors are kept unlocked in case someone needs to run inside to avoid a bear. Few people carry guns, but everyone calls police whenever they see a bear. And this morning, the phones have been busy.
Did you see anything when you were up there, Jack?
We saw tracking nothing. We went and tried looking at them trees up all the way to Cape Mary all over. We never seen nothing.
Most polar bears can be scared out of town with a few shots of a firecracker gun. But this bear has returned 5 times today. So it's time for more drastic measures. The bear is tranquilized with a dart rifle. The goal here is to keep bears and people safe and alive. Jim is invited to help identify the polar bear.
X17276 is the tattoo on both sides. They're in good condition. Part of the process for identifying the bear is if it's never been captured before, you give it 2 ear tags, okay? And the ear tags, we can switch the tattoo number, and you give it a corresponding tattoo on both sides of the mouth. That's what the green is. It's a biodegradable ink.
Once a bear is subdued, it still needs to be taken out of town. So offenders are either flown out 20 kilometers or taken here to a sort of polar bear jail. They wait here before being released when the ice freezes, and they'll happily start hunting seals.
It's very clear from a town like Churchill that the people here really understand bears, and so it speaks volumes about the need for education and the need for people just to understand a little bit about safety issues in bear country and the behavior of bears.
Yeah, my impression of polar bears before I came to Churchill was that they were an extremely dangerous predator that would always view a person as prey. And I think I've learned that while they're a predator, they don't always view us as prey, and that's evident by the you know, the very few attacks that we have in an area like this that has so many polar bears and so many people trying to view them.
And for me, it's pretty inspirational to see these people coexisting so well with polar bears in Churchill.
For their last case, Jim and Lana traveled to a town that hasn't solved its bear problem, where bears and humans are putting each other in danger every day. For the next case, Jim heads to the town of Whistler, British Columbia. Nestled in the mountains, this popular ski resort is growing quickly, right into bear territory. Here, the problem is breaking and entering. Bears have found that it is easier to steal human food and garbage than to find food in the bush. In 2001, there was a rash of home invasions by bears, 18 incidents in 1 month. It's a problem that has brought Jim and Lana to investigate. Is this a bear problem?
Hey Jim, how you doing?
Or a human one?
So I've taken a look around. Why don't you jump out and I'll show you what I think I found.
One of the houses invaded in 2001 was occupied by the Grills family.
I was playing, I go upstairs, and I made this thing, so I walked downstairs to show my dad.
I was working in the office, talking on the telephone, and I'd heard quite a bit of noise in the house, and it was only Ryan was home. So at one point I stopped the conversation, went and asked him what he's doing, and he said he's upstairs playing with Lego.
So the bear came through the screen door, broke in through there, went into the kitchen, started rummaging around in the cupboards and any food that was left on the counters.
And then I thought my mom was home, so I went into the kitchen.
So we came around the corner to have a look, and that's where he came eye to eye with the bear, and the blood-curdling scream. And
so I screamed as loud as I could and ran into the office and went under the desk.
So at the time of the encounter, were they cooking at all? Had they made any bacon or egg or anything smelly for breakfast that would have been vented out of the house?
No, they had dry cereal and there was some muffins sitting on the counter and some coffees and things like that, but nothing that would have smelled a lot.
Ryan's scream had not only scared me, but scared the bear. I started screaming, clapped my hands really loud, scared the bear further onto the patio, and then kept screaming and yelling and sent him off into the woods off the property.
Well, that kind of indicates to me that this bear had had an encounter before this one. It had known kitchens, associated houses with food, human food, and how to get it. And at this point was just sort of looking around and came upon a screen door, which was easy to break in.
Soon homes in 2 neighborhoods were reporting bear break-ins. But exactly what kinds of human food do black bears like so much? And how do they get in? No one filmed any of the bear break-ins in 2001, so we decided to find out what food bears like. We hired a trained bear and filmed what happened when it was turned loose on a well-stocked kitchen. Jim and Lana want to see what happens too, so they will be watching on a monitor.
I told you should never leave your window open in bear country.
Pretty gentle, you never broke the cup.
He was doing a good job. Well, the only wild bear I've ever seen do this. Ripped apart the place.
Bears are smart. They want to eat as many calories as they can without much effort.
Oh, there's Cheerios.
This bag of candy is why bears love human food. It takes just a few minutes to eat 2,000 calories, not counting the wrappers. Bears have no problems with handles, and they're strong enough to bend a car door open.
pretty gentle the way you opened that too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've seen them open things, so even ones lids on garbage cans would be pretty, they're pretty agile.
In my experience, the bear's gone for a lot of sugar items. Right there, he's drinking a sugary juice. We use molasses quite often in our traps.
It's like the Martha Stewart of bears, hey? Cleans up after himself.
Bears are shrewd. Once they discover human food is filling and easy, they'll keep coming back for more. However, that night, Jim receives an emergency call. Local authorities are alerted to another bear that is breaking into backyards. As a senior conservation officer in the area, Jim is asked to help find the bear, and Lana comes along.
Walked right up to our car.
Oh.
Kind of just stepped in.
Is there garbage around here at all? Or?
Across the street, there's
A black bear has been spotted in a parking lot near some condos and a restaurant.
Want to let a couple of bangers go on the other side, and then see if he runs across here.
We've got a pyrotechnic gun. I'm just going to load it up in case we want to scare the bear with it. Shoots two different types of flare type things, a cracker and a screamer.
Jim and the officers are armed. Their goal is not to kill the bear, but to teach it to fear and avoid humans.
Still in near my side here. It's closer to the gray vehicle. Copy.
10-4, can you see him from where you are?
No, he's deep in the bush. If somebody comes on this side and we load the bear banger from this side, we can scare him on it.
Bears usually find these firecracker guns terrifying. But so far, there's no sign of the bear. An hour later, another call brings Jim and Lana to the back of a hotel. This time, it is a different bear. The officers load their guns with rubber bullets, another way to convince bears that humans and their food should be avoided.
I don't know how we're going to get him out of there. Where is he? We'll use this as a backdrop there. Two blue recycle bins. Use that as a backdrop? Plastic trash backdrop.
So yeah, we want him to go out that way.
Back on this. You just are you ready?
As the terrified bear flees, it leaves a trail of urine. The officers move in to inspect what brought the bear here. To a bear, this is a free buffet.
None of this should even be in here. This is for papers. This stuff should all be locked up.
Who belongs to this?
This is one of the hotels here. Some of them share this area, but
I don't think much of it, and I think that this just causes problems. This just makes problem bears. It's upsetting, I would say, to say the least. It's very upsetting. It doesn't take a lot to get a bear-proof garbage can and to make sure that garbage can is always closed. And if you're going to have an establishment in an area with bears, then I think it's your responsibility to do that.
But how do you stop a bear with a taste for human food? When we come back, the surprising conclusion to the B&E bear case. Jim is upset by what he sees in Whistler. Bears are finding lots of human food here. Like bait, this food is inviting bears to get too close to human beings. And those encounters can be deadly to both humans and bears. It is a danger that Stephen Hill personally encountered during the wave of break-ins in 2001. Hill was a journalist who had written a series of articles about bear safety for a local newspaper.
So I'd just written a story, a front page story called Beware of B&E Bears. And I ended it with telling people what they should do to avoid having bears come into their house, keep their windows secure and their garbage and all that sort of stuff. And also what to do if you happen to encounter a bear.
So how did the bear get into the house in the first place?
Well, the window was open about ½ an inch. Even though this fellow had just written an article in the paper that people shouldn't do that, he hadn't taken his own advice.
And I started hearing dishes rattling and, you know, all like things dropping on the floor. So I got out of bed carefully and peered around a corner. There was a bear. There was sugar and coffee and like everything was pulled out of the fridge and the cupboards, and it was a disaster. So I banged on the window. The bear got frightened by this right away, but I had miscalculated because the windows were so close together that the bear ended up being 6 feet away from me when it left the house. So I did the same thing, lifted up my arms and said, "Go away, you know, get out of here." And the bear jumped forward and went, "Ugh." It scared me, and I ran.
In this encounter, I think what happened is that the man and the bear ended up really close to each other. He said about 6 feet apart, and so the bear's reaction was, he was in his personal space. Get out of my personal space. Of course, then the man reacted by, he just turned around and ran. And that's not the reaction you want to have. You want to maybe make yourself as big as possible, avoid direct eye contact, back off, making noise, but just trying not to run, because you do really want to try not to evoke a predatory response.
I'd been writing stories saying, "Don't run, the bear will think you're prey." And I ran. And then when I realized I shouldn't be running, I turned around to face the bear again, and it was already wandering off.
So I think this bear had done this before. We're in the same area as a lot of those other break-ins occurred, close to where the other house was broken into. And the bear just seemed to know what it was doing. The window was only open ½ of an inch, and I managed to get it open, slit the screen, and climb in.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this behavior first happened, whether someone fed it from a house or whether it first, you know, broke in, but bears are extremely smart, and once this type of thing happens, it's really, really difficult to deter.
The last I saw of it, however, 3 days later, on a Saturday, I was in my apartment, in my suite, doing a news story, typing a news story on my computer, and I heard a couple of sharp, like the backfiring of a car, but I know the sound of a shotgun. And I found out later that just down from my place, the bear had entered another house, and police or conservation service came and shot it.
Jim remembers the bear's death well. He was the conservation officer who approved the shooting. Carelessness by humans cost this bear its life, joining 1,000 others killed each year.
But I think what we really need to focus on in this instance is that it seems really funny. Though you got this bear that's doing all these break-in entries and breaking into all these homes, and it's in all the press coverages, but what this resulted in was the death of this animal. And I don't, find that funny at all. People need to remember that bears are wild animals, and in Whistler, you're living here in bear country, and they need to be respected.
The people in Whistler are very tolerant right now. There's a lot of bears that are coming right into the village, and they're still getting into things. And if there is ever an attack in Whistler or even near Whistler, those people's attitudes may change, and it may result in the death of a lot of bears, not just one or two.
Whistler is not alone. In our love affair with the wild, we humans are moving our homes and our garbage into bear territory, into the home of animals who are stronger and faster than us. To live with them, we need to give them space and respect. That way, no one needs to get hurt.
In a mysterious land, a place forgotten by time, lives one of nature's greatest secrets. Many believe it's only a legend, but there are those who have seen it, appearing out of mist and jungle like a ghost, to haunt this exotic, emerald world as a living reminder of nature's power and magic. At the beginning of time, the whole world was white with ice and snow. Then Raven flew down from the heavens and made the world green, as it is now. But he also wanted to make something to remind him of the beginning and its whiteness. So on these islands, he went among the bears, the black bears, and every 10th one he turned white. That way he could look at them and remember the world as it once was. And then Raven issued a decree. The white bears would live here forever in peace. On the Pacific coast of Canada, 700 miles north of Vancouver, British Columbia, and impossible to reach except by boat or airplane, lie the Mid-Coast Islands. It's a place so isolated, so removed, it's called the Forgotten Coast. Since the last ice age, these islands have remained uninhabited, except for First Nations people who have thrived here in one of the richest, most diverse ecosystems on Earth. It's a rugged, wild landscape of towering slopes, deep fjords, and lush valleys, teeming with life, the most abundant to be found anywhere in North America. On every shoreline, a jungle of moss-laden old-growth forest forms an impenetrable barrier. Behind it, a prehistoric world is revealed. These coniferous giants are the last reminder of a forest of cedar and spruce that once carpeted the earth. But in this land of giants, only the sea rules. Here, a delicate interplay between fresh and salt water nurtures hundreds of species. From the microscopic to the majestic. Here, the raw, wild power of nature inspired the creation of one of the world's most distinct cultures. Cedar burial boxes are hidden throughout this island labyrinth. Ancient remains of the forefathers of the Kitasoo First Nation, who have called this place home since the Raven first turned this world green. In all of ancient America, only the cultures of the Aztec and Inca equal the sophistication of the Kitasoo, one of many Northwest tribes who embraced this rich land and celebrated it in a rich culture. In their world, nature is a generous spirit, capable of transforming itself into living, breathing entities to ensure the constant return of abundant food resources, like the salmon. Today, the Kitasoo live in the village of Klemtu, the only human presence for hundreds of miles in any direction. On the surface, a modern, thriving community. But life here is, as it's always been, a daily ritual of harvesting nature's bounty. Like all life on the mid-coast, salmon is the primary food source in Klemtu, still smoked the old way, in cedar shacks over cedar shakes for hours on end. The raven, eagle, wolf, and orca, traditional symbols of the band, and the potlatch, an ancient celebration to welcome new chiefs or remember old ghosts, also remain important and sacred. The Mid-Coast Islands are home, a place where nature is rich and tangible. To the Kitasoo, it is always there, with one exception.
As old as I am, I've never seen a live one, but my son has seen it, you know.
That's when I seen it in Indian River. There was a whole bunch of us that stopped then to watch it.
I've only saw it twice, and that's the only time I've seen it, not very close.
It just never happened, you know, and I never really knew about them myself either, you know, and I never ever went looking for it.
Mysterious, elusive. Even the people who live here have rarely seen it. And those lucky enough to meet the ghost bear of the rainforest, so says another legend, are given the gift of predicting the future. In the land of the Kitasoo, all animals have a special significance. The raven, eagle, wolf, and orca are powerful symbols of life in one of the richest and wildest places on Earth. But the ghost bear is special. It defines this land and the people as rare as the bear itself.
The bear is part of the symbol of the Kitasoo, and it's a very, very sacred symbol to us. It's part of our strength, just like the symbol of our 4 crests we have. It's a symbol of where we get our strength. I saw the first white bear as a child. That's where I first seen my white bear.
Only here, in the rainforests of the Mid-Coast Islands, lives a unique subspecies of the black bear, so isolated for so long from mainland bears that every 10th one, as says the legend, is indeed white. This 5-year-old male, a teenager in bear years, is not an albino, or even a cousin of the polar bear. Biologists have tried for over a century to solve the riddle of how and why its coat turned white, with no success. We don't even know how many there are. Appropriate characteristics for a ghost. All we know for sure is that they only live here, in a world, as the Kitasoo say, put together by the raven. Our teenager appears to be enjoying a good scratch, but he's actually marking his home territory. Marked trees are signposts in the bear community and a practical way to prevent confrontations before they occur. The scent he leaves on this tree will let other bears know whose home this is and how big the current resident is. In nature, size is everything, and if a larger, older bear does come along, he too might mark this tree, telling our teenager it might be wise to move on. It's a lesson learned well by the Kitasoo, who clearly marked their own territory here many centuries ago.
We're in a place known to us Kitasoo as Disju, and it's a gathering place of the Kitasoo people. It's an identity thing, you know, with our people. I only knew of it maybe when I was about 16 or 17, and I was out trapping with my father out here, and he brought me here too, and that was the first I ever saw this. You know, like it's a last remaining of what our ancestors had when we lived all around this area. It's all part of our territory, the whole thing, everything, you know, like we exist from the sea. We live on the land.
Bears do rely heavily on food from the sea, especially during the annual salmon spawn. But right now, the streams are too low, and all a bear or fish can do is wait for the late summer rains to fill them up. Some salmon have made headway, and catching the early arrivals is quite possible, if he can find one that matches his own size. It's also possible this 2-year-old cub has a white sister, brother, mother, or father. Although the origin of the recessive gene that turned the black bear's coat white remains a scientific question mark, fact is, the black bears here can and do create white offspring. In the bear hierarchy, white or black makes no difference, and an older bear is just a bigger bear who's found someone poaching his territory. For the cub, it means the end of a day's fishing. Peering down from their treetop vantage points, bald eagles also wait eagerly for the salmon spawn to really begin. If our teenager appears nervous, It's not because hunters are stalking the forest. Few do, but hunting is allowed here. And although the white bear is protected by law, black bears also carry the recessive white gene. Problem is, how would you know? The Kitasoo have never hunted the white bear. And elders still tell stories about its sacred spirit.
I've always heard them talking about a white bear. That's why my grandparents used to tell me, said not to hurt them or do anything to them because maybe there's something special about them. There's a reason why they're different from the others.
Only here, bears have no fear of humans and may have no concept of fear at all. When he does see us, he makes a habit of looking us straight in the eye. In all of nature, there is, perhaps, no experience like it. These temperate rainforests produce 4 times more life than any other on Earth. They exist because these islands are the first landmass moisture-laden winds hit after an unbroken 9,000-mile journey across the Pacific Ocean. Which means a massive amount of rainfall, over 50 feet of it a year. From California to Alaska, the entire West Coast was once a continuous, gigantic forest. But other than here, most of it is long gone. Tall stands of ancient timber dominate the landscape, denying sunlight and easy access. In this temperate jungle, only 4-legged creatures can travel easily. Where sunlight does break through, mostly along stream banks and tidal flats, over 500 varieties of flowers, shrubs, and bushes thrive, nurturing man, beast, and the forest itself. But without a doubt, the red cedar is the tree of life. Hundreds of years of slow growth create a wood soft, pliable, yet so straight-grained, the Kitasoo learned to peel off 2-inch planks, 20 feet long, leaving these trees alive to grow for another millennium. 1,000 years before Christianity, the Kitasoo were building cedar-hewn houses, dugout canoes, and carving into history one of the world's great artistic cultures.
Everything that makes us what we are is all around us. The medicines they gather from the forests, the food they gather from the seas. It sustained our people for, thousands and thousands of years. If you talk about the food that you get out of the ocean, the medicines and the materials that you get from the forest, they're all important. They played an important role in our people for as long as our people have been here.
If you take the land away from me, then I may be gone too, because the land looks after everything, the rivers, meat, berries, traditional items such as herbs that we use for medicine. All of that, are nurtured by the land.
By reaping only what the rain and sea had sown, the most complex civilization to ever emerge without benefit of agriculture was created here. Living from nature, They depended on the earth for signs, like a bear's arrival on the coast. Rarely will the white bear come down from the mountains, preferring to feast on berries and insects until the salmon spawn beckons. Yet wherever it goes, the bear is a guide and a teacher.
Well, it represents many things. Now, the bear tells you that there are berries there. The bear tells you because of their presence there that there's salmon-bearing river. All of those things, you know, those are, when you see a bear, it's a good sign that there's life somewhere, you know, that indicates salmon berries and stuff that, you know, nobody would know of.
In a few short months, hibernation begins, and this scarred 15-year-old's instincts have moved into overdrive, telling him it's time to eat as many fish as possible, as fast as possible. During the salmon spawn, a bear will consume about 700 fish, increasing his body fat by almost 40%. When this old veteran settles down in his winter den, he'll sleep until spring, burning off the body fat he's storing up now. Females will give birth during hibernation, and the cubs must nourish themselves on their mother's enriched high-fat milk until she wakes up. Life has been good to our veteran. He's seen a lot of summers come and go, and should live to see many more. Bears in the wild can live almost 25 years, but here, with so much food around, they have a good chance of living a lot longer. Some bears never fish at all, keeping an eye on smaller bears' success instead. It's not lazy. For a big bear, just practical. But our veteran shouldn't worry. At over 400 pounds, he's a big bear. Summer is the only season when rainfall is measured in inches rather than feet, making streams unpredictably rise and fall and stalling the salmon's run for home. The best time to catch them is yet to come. Black bears rarely forage in the heat of the day, preferring early morning or evening to feed. Their black coats soak up the hot sun like a sponge, and summer days are better spent in the cool forest canopy, fast asleep. A white bear with a white coat doesn't have as much of a problem with the heat, giving him more opportunities to feed undisturbed. Today, the sun is too hot even for our teenager, but he has his own ideas about cooling off. Time off is a concept even a bear understands. He should enjoy it while he can. Soon enough, this pool will be teeming with thousands of visitors. As the Kitasoo say, they live on the land, but live from the sea. Halibut and herring, crab, prawns, sea urchins, and sea cucumber are harvested throughout the year. But the mainstay of all life in these islands is the salmon. And right now, everyone and everything waits for its annual return.
I can understand why they picked this area for their main village site. They have resources here available for them year-round. Salmon not only nourished our people, it also gave us the opportunity to trade with other communities for things such as grease and soapberries and seaweed. You know, there are other things that we don't have that aren't local to our territory here, and it gave us that opportunity to travel to other places and trade.
We can't see it yet, but out there, in the depths of the Pacific, a movable feast is coming right at us. The orca have traveled far to be the first in a long line of animals to gorge on massive numbers of spawning salmon. The life of the salmon is actually just one long round trip. A patient kingfisher pauses to check their progress. In this stream, there are now more than enough salmon to go around. Five species of salmon, sockeye and coho, chinook, chum, and pink, return in the millions each year to these islands to lay their eggs. Somehow, after traveling thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean, they've returned to the exact same streams they left 4 years ago, weighing less than an ounce. It's another mystery that science has yet to solve. Some believe they find their way home by smell. Decaying earth, rotting logs, salty mists, and wildflower blooms. Perhaps it's the rainforest they smell. Bears have the keenest sense of smell of any mammal. In fact, their face is almost all nose, and for them, the scent of salmon must be overpowering. They're also extremely intelligent animals. Although still young in bear years, our teenager has been around long enough to know where the stream is shallow and most likely to be packed with fish. His size is deceiving. Over a short distance, he can outrun a racehorse, but catching a sleek fish in calm water is destined for failure from the start. This bear knows a better spot. The Kitasoo know the good fishing spots too. Long before the use of nets, they built massive fish traps, piling rocks by hand, one by one, at the mouths of streams. At low tide, the salmon were trapped inside the shallow enclosure, allowing the Kitasoo to harvest them easily without needing a net, hook, or spear. It was a naturally practical idea. A young bald eagle is also taking advantage of the salmon's upstream struggle. He'd better, or he too could risk not surviving the winter. And winter is not far away. In the land of the ghost bear, life is complex and magical, ancient and timeless. Only nature decides when the rules will change. The autumn rains have arrived, and with them, no guarantee they'll ever end. Soon the downpour will fill the streams right up, and this time they'll stay up. The salmon harvest is about to begin. The autumn rains have arrived and will last until spring, with month after month passing without a sign of the sun. In the mystical half-light that remains, days are marked only by the cycles of the rain's intensity. Ferociously wet and relentlessly gray. Blurred by thick mist and fog, the separation between forest and ocean becomes indistinguishable. But in nature, there is no separation, and every living thing on the Rain Coast ultimately responds to the same ecological rhythm. For the bear, nature's timing is perfect, and now that the runoff remains constant, the life cycle of the rainforest is at its height. The spawn is gorging season for a lot of animals, and for all of them, finally, the salmon are on the move. If this black bear isn't careful, he could easily slip and drown, but he doesn't miss a step. Even for bears, fishing is a learned experience, with instincts enhanced by education. This bear has probably fished here since he was a cub and memorized every submerged rock ledge and eddy in this canyon. Places only this bear would know, where exhausted salmon escape the relentless current in calmer water, sandwiched between boulders. In there, salmon are served buffet style. The feast is so rich, bears discriminate between male and female salmon, ignoring the males to gorge on the rich red row of females. They'll usually eat 3 or 4 times a day, resting for long periods in between, but instincts remind them never to relax. Next year's salmon spawn will be a long time coming. The Kitasoo have been fishing these waters for almost as long as the bears. And their instincts, too, are telling them it's time to stock up.
Food fishing is important for our community. We need this out here just to survive, to continue to live in the community as remote as ours. My father-in-law is fishing with me, so we're going to split it between the two of us. This area is actually rich in all sorts of sea resources. There's halibut to be caught out here and rock cod, and there's spring salmon. As long as there have been kitasu, they've used this bay.
Our veteran has found his good fishing spot too. Better yet, he's eating undisturbed, and it's fairly obvious why. His scarred nose bears the mark of a long and eventful life. For 15 years, he's remained king of the world. His world. The salmon struggle comes at a price, and fish that have injured themselves on rocks are everywhere. This 10-pound sockeye will do just fine. His paws are the size of baseball gloves, but they have the dexterity of human hands, allowing him to handle a salmon like a ground ball. Perhaps bears are closer to us than we'd like to think. The Kitasu people think so. In their world, nature is a friend, and animals have spirits and can speak. It is a timeless state of grace, perfect, fragile, and traditionally maintained.
I think that when I come out here now, it's just starting to begin to get that feeling of tradition that we have out here. It's very important. You talk to the elders and they'll tell you that it sustained our people for, thousands and thousands of years.
To the outside world, the white bear is another of nature's curiosities, and not, as it should be, a living reflection of ancient times, when legends were born of animals offering us the power of their knowledge. For the modern world, this bear is truly a ghost. The first salmon run of the season has been a good one, with more to come. Percy Starr's son Godfrey has pulled over 800 sockeye out of Kitasu Bay. Enough to keep many in the community busy canning and smoking into the fall. For these fishermen, it's time to head home. Autumn adds new colors to the spectrum of the rainforest. And as the salmon run begins to slow, so too does the life cycle of these islands, but not the streams. Their thunder will continue to roll down to the sea until summer returns. It's been a good fishing season for our teenager, too. After gaining almost 60 pounds in 6 weeks, he's stuffed with fish, and probably not too interested in eating another one for quite a while. He's very content and well prepared for winter. When he wakes up in the spring, he'll discover the world exactly as he left it. Except he'll be hungry once again. For the people in Klemtu, winter's perpetual rainstorms mark the longest season of the year. But the salmon will see them through. Before arriving home, fishing boats radio ahead, letting the community know they're loaded with fish and to come down to the docks to share in the harvest. Families take only what they need, jarring, canning, smoking, and freezing their primary food supply, which should last until next year. By the end of the spawn, hundreds of dead salmon have been flushed downstream, washing up on the island's rocky coastline and tidal flats. Down here, the scavenging is always good, and fresh salmon carcass deposited by the tide is about as close a bear can get to home delivery. Here in their island fortress, forgotten by time, the white bear lives happily in peace, just as the raven guaranteed over 10,000 years ago. There's an old Kitasoo story about a woman who married a bear. She was very beautiful, but young and foolish. One day, while watching a bear struggling to catch fish in a deep pool, she laughed at him, not knowing he hadn't eaten in days. The elders became angry and forced the woman to marry the bear and take care of him. At first, she was very unhappy, but she grew to love the bear and bore him 2 children, a boy and a girl. These were the first people to live in this place, and they promised never to laugh at nature again. No one really knows how or why its coat turned white. We don't even know how many exist. All we do know is what the Kitasoo have known since the beginning of time. The ghost bear haunts this rainforest, reminding all of us how nature once was, and at least here, still is. What do you hear in the lonely howl of the wolf? Does it send a cold shiver down your spine or raise your spirits as only the call of the wild can? Myth, fable, and blatant lies plague the wolf like no other species. No more controversial animal lives. None is so hated. None so misunderstood. In the wilderness or in our living rooms, the howl of the wolf speaks to us in many ways. Yet rarely do we listen. Deep in the Canadian heartland, a modern-day drama between two of the world's greatest predators is taking place on a stage of unrivaled natural beauty. Algonquin Park is one of the largest and oldest wilderness parks in North America. Located in a transition zone between northern coniferous and southern hardwood forests, a startling diversity of over 1,000 plants, 270 birds, and 40 mammals has evolved here. Observing wolves in the wild is a rare experience. Highly social, superbly intelligent, and extremely cautious, they're seldom seen, but often heard. Michael Runce was 3 years old when he first visited Algonquin Park. 40 years later, his childhood fascination has become a lifelong passion.
Wolves are sort of one of the target species that I was really after when I started work here in 1972. And the very first time I met a wolf was by its voice, as is the standard way to meet wolves here in Algonquin Park. And it was a nice dark night. We were tracking wolves, trying to locate wolves by foot. We walked up this wonderful portage trail into the dark night, and there it was, a howling from the distant lakeshore. That experience was really moving, you know, hearing the first wild wolf of my life. And that was to be repeated many times in the years to come. Over those years, I've been supposedly working, but really just enjoying myself. This park is a phenomenal park. It's one of these places that is unique for its feel.
Algonquin Park has no towering mountains or deep whitewater canyons. Its appeal lies in a simple, accessible bond between people and nature. For many, it's the site of their first canoe trip, their first sighting of a moose or deer, their first symphony of wolf howls by starlight. But the park is wild, complex, and fragile, a place that takes a lifetime to know intimately. To most park visitors, the true face of nature remains invisible behind an indomitable wall of wilderness. It's just there, naturally. But not to John and Mary Theberge. They too have spent a lifetime in the park, learning the lexicon of its most indomitable animal.
My relationship with Algonquin wolves began by chance when I was assigned to a wolf biologist named Douglas Pimlott, who worked for the then Ontario Department of Lands and Forests when I was in grade 13. We knew nothing about ecology of wolves. We were starting at sort of square one. He wasn't keen on getting into radiotelemetry, which we've used extensively, and found out a lot about wolves from the technology was young then and uncertain. So we used howling to try to find wolves, and I canoed the park twice over at night. It's only in recent years I've seen a lot of these lakes, howling at them and conducting census work.
Our first experience was just shortly after we were married. And John suggested that we come for a canoe trip up to Algonquin Park, and I naively said, well, do we have a tent? He said, no. I said, well, where will we sleep? Well, under the canoe will be fine if it rains. So as it happened, it did rain during the night, and the sleeping bag was completely wet. Fog came in and just blanketed the whole area. In the morning when we got up, you couldn't see anything, but we did give a howl. and had a response from some wolves and decided to paddle out to where the response came from. And gradually the fog did lift. And lo and behold, just above us on the rock, 3 wolves appeared. Well, I guess I could have had my walking papers at that point and left the marriage, but I didn't. It was the most exhilarating experience I had. It was my introduction to wolves. And 37 years later, I'm still here in the game. People see the wolf as a thing of beauty, and they have a reverence for it. To them, it is a part of a wilderness that's dying and no longer is to be found everywhere in this country. And for them, this song of the wilderness, the song of the wolf, has a lot of meaning.
Established in 1893, Algonquin Park is renowned for its lush wilderness and diverse wildlife. The lord of this jungle is the wolf, North America's premier land predator. The wolf is considered a keystone species, maintaining the wild, natural balance by regulating the populations of all other species.
There it is, very faint. Go to the bend in the road there and maybe try for the antenna.
John and Mary Theberge have spent the last 14 years studying Algonquin's wolf population.
There you go.
Although they rarely see one, they know more about the wolves here than anyone else in the world. By tracking radio-collared animals, they can analyze movement patterns and ultimately wolf behavior, most of it hidden behind the facade of thick forests.
Do you have bearing on it?
Yeah, just a minute. It's faint, so it's not going to be a great bearing, but .275.
You're getting some movement then, because it was louder when we first got here.
Well, maybe, but the signal's pretty steady. It's almost up the road, because the road curves.
To study wolves, a good place to start is at the beginning, the den site.
It looks like the jack pine pack's been using this area again this year. Okay, it looks like it's been used. You can see the claw marks on the side. See these claw marks over here? These are new from last year.
That whole area is new. That's dug back in there. Have you got a flashlight?
I do.
And there's more claw marks.
Oh, look at the way that's all crumbly. That.
You see on the right-hand side, there's 2 sort of dents in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They could be pup tracks too, real soft ground.
Something has used it, because usually there's a lot more debris and cobwebs that hang down, and that's all being cleared off.
Well, it's a really good den site. Good one to use again. Sandy soil, easy digging. It's high on a south-facing slope.
Actually, when you look at the trails, they're like a spoke coming in on a wheel. They're definitely coming into a central place, and they're more used than they were last year.
The Theberges have a close relationship with their wolves and have given each pack a name. This den used to belong to the Hardwood pack, which was killed after it strayed outside the park. The Jack Pine pack quickly moved in, extending its own territory in a very unnatural way.
The bottom line with the hardwood pack is it paid the price of having half its territory in the park and some outside the park, like so many packs have, and went outside the park and was killed. So we lost a whole pack. In a social animal like this, the experience of a female in raising young is important in its success. So in the Algonquin population, females get 1, maybe 2 chances at being breeding females, and then they're dead.
After a decade of research, the Thauberges concluded that Algonquin's wolf population was plummeting to dangerously low levels due to merciless hunting outside the park. Their conclusions created a controversy over the protection of wolves, but it was only the beginning. In 1998, after several more years of genetic analysis, they made an amazing discovery.
One of the really big surprises in our research, which we thought was a study of the gray wolf, is that that's not the wolf that's here at all. To everybody's surprise, the genetics results discovered that we really have been studying the red wolf, not the gray wolf. There's 2 species of wolves in the world, both live in North America, the red wolf and the gray wolf. The red wolf was thought to live only, well, it lived only in eastern North America, supposedly from about the southeast, from Virginia south to Florida. Gray wolves inhabited the rest of North America. But red wolves became extinct in the wild in about 1965 or 1970. There's only 1 wild red wolf population. It was reintroduced at great expense by the U.S. government in North Carolina, some captive stock. So this looks like a species about to go out of existence, and to everybody's surprise, we suddenly find another population of it, and it's here in Algonquin Park.
The Thauberges' discovery of a rare wolf species, not even supposed to exist in Canada, was viewed with suspicion due to their controversial opinions about the declining wolf numbers in the park. Even Michael Runce wasn't convinced at first.
In the early years, we always wondered why the animals here were so small and more brightly colored. I've seen wolves in northern Ontario, and they're quite a bit different looking. They're bigger and more gray. And finally, when I began to really analyze what was being written about the red wolf situation and the DNA results, then I finally came to the conclusion that, yeah, they're right, that these are red wolves.
Almost overnight, Algonquin Park had become a fortress for one of the world's rarest animals. But could even a park protect it?
There's not many ways to get around the park apart from on foot or by canoe. But that's the beauty of the park. It's got this great network of lakes and rivers and streams, and you can paddle almost anywhere. Now, of course, there are some carry points, some portages to deal with, but they aren't that bad. And actually, it's kind of fun carrying an 80-pound canoe in your camera gear over a 2-kilometer portage. It's good for you.
Algonquin Park is laced with 1,600 kilometers of canoe routes, and Michael Runce has probably traveled on every one as a leading park naturalist and photographer. Wherever there's a beaver pond, it's a good bet you'll find wolves prowling for a snack. Of all animals other than the wolf, the beaver has the most powerful impact on this ecosystem. Throughout Algonquin, there are thousands of beaver ponds, which create habitats for a lot of other animals. The Ponds, for example, support water plants which are high in sodium and a favorite food of the moose. But with so many beavers around, without the wolf to regulate their population, Algonquin Park could become one gigantic beaver pond. And with the decline in the park's deer population, the beaver has become a major new food source for the declining wolf population. To study one of nature's most elusive animals, wolf scat has become an important research tool for John and Mary Thaberge.
There's two scats here.
Scat is another form of communication. To scientists, it tells a tale of current or changing eating habits. To wolves, animals who live in a world mapped out by scent, it marks their territory.
Yeah. This one's older than the other one, and there's quite a bit of coarse hair in there. Could be the deer or moose.
Yeah, I don't see any beaver in it.
The other one looked like it could have some beaver. Well, it was, but this one seems far coarser than a beaver hair would be.
Yeah.
Well, there are no tracks on the road either, so.
Okay.
We collect about 1,000 scats a year, and from that we can analyze what the wolves are eating. Their diet consists of approximately 1/3 beaver, 1/3 moose, 1/3 deer. This has been different from the 1960s, where the diet was primarily 80% deer.
Wolves defecate not just for the normal purposes, but they also mark their territories with the scats. That's why we left part of the scat there, because if we didn't, we would take away this territorial marking. Other wolves come along and realize the territory's occupied.
That olfactory sac is 14 times larger than ours, and some behaviorists have estimated that their sense of smell then is developed 100 times more than ours. So that offers a whole spectrum to them that we don't have. It can read a whole story into the scent path of various animals.
The optimum prey is deer. Deer sort of jerk the wolves around the most. When the deer migrate, the wolves won't migrate with them. It's the energy package about maximum, optimum for them in terms of energy expended versus energy gained back, whereas beaver are only eaten in large numbers when deer are at low numbers unavailable, because they spend a lot of energy and only get a small amount back. Whereas moose are more formidable prey, and they probably will hunt and maybe chase and surround and test a lot more moose before they'll get one successfully than they do a deer.
Algonquin wolves do eat more beaver than most other wolves, but deer remains their primary food source. Hunting in packs, they prey on older or weaker animals, which are easier to hunt down. And when they do, their legacy as the world's most ruthless land predator is easy to understand. This young deer was torn apart in only a few hours. By the time the pack moved on, only bits of fur and fragments of bone remained. Nothing was wasted.
Got some really fresh wolf droppings over here. Probably no more than a day old at most. If that, it still looks wet actually where they urinated too around them. So there is a wolf not too far away. Maybe up here somewhere.
The highly organized social structure of the wolf pack is key to hunting the largest of all the prey animals. Weighing in at over half a ton, it takes the combined energy of the entire pack to bring down a moose. In autumn, moose leave the sanctuary of wetlands behind to begin the annual rut. Exposed on dry land and hampered by thick underbrush, they become easier prey.
It's early October now. There's a beautiful frost on the plants this morning, nice mist over the water. There has been a pack of wolves around for a couple of days back in a valley somewhere over there. This time of year, they still do use rendezvous sites, but they also travel to kills more regularly too with the pups. And by the sounds of the ravens squawking over there, there has to be a kill. This is why that pack of wolves was around here. There's not much left. In fact, they're chewing on the bones for the marrow content. There's all kinds of signs around here of a great struggle of broken off branches and fairly large saplings smashed right down. Wolves don't kill and then waste their food and go off and kill something else. When they kill an animal like a moose, they stay and they feast on it for days. And this animal here fed not only wolves, but ravens and perhaps fisher, marten, even a fox. A lot of things benefit from a wolf-killed animal.
No one else in the world has collected as much comprehensive wolf research as John and Mary Thaberge. Their most important tool is the radio collar. But before they can track this elusive predator, who can see, hear, and smell much better than humans, they have to catch them.
We have to approach the animal very quietly and very cautiously, not for fear for ourselves, but because we don't want the animal disturbed. We don't want the animal to be too frightened. We don't want this. It's a harrowing experience for it, being trapped, being caught, and having humans approach, because most humans kill them when they're in this situation. Now, we could go up to it with a syringe and sedate it, but again, we find that the animal is so frightened of us that it develops a lot of anxiety behavior and begins jumping and trying to get away. So John will try to divert it, and I will approach it with a poke stick that's about 6 feet long, and it doesn't even notice this poke stick, and I close the syringe and inject it with the drug.
We trap these animals. We do them with humane traps that are made for research with offset jaws and padded jaws and all the rest of it, and take all sorts of care not to damage these animals. When you catch them and you have at your feet an animal when they're in a trap, they're totally afraid. They're never aggressive. They're totally afraid. And there you have this animal laying that your vision of wilderness, the animal you respect, and you've reduced it to the lying in front of you, drugged out. It's very emotional, very difficult. It's not been a pleasant part of the research for us, but it's been a necessity.
At that point, the next thing we do is put on the collar. We make sure the collar's working. We note the frequency, and we attach the collar to it, making sure that we have enough room that the animal, if it's swallowing a whole chunk of meat, isn't going to be choked by the meat, so there's enough room for the meat to slide down. But at the same time, the collar can't be so loose that it's going to be able to bring it up over its head. We measure the animal, and we look for any injuries, we look for disease, we look for mange. The animal's 282. And then finally we weigh the wolf before we let it go, and after that we can track it both from the ground and from the air.
We've radio-collared 173 wolves, and there's only one other study in the world that's radio-collared that many wolves. Radio-collaring is absolutely essential to know where they are in the forest, because you just can't find them and track them any other way.
Everything that you see in this park is an interconnected web. Each species adds a harmonious part to another species. It's like working with a watch. If you were to take a watch and take various parts out and then gradually put it back together, that watch wouldn't work in the same way. And to us, this wilderness is like that. If you were to take one aspect out of it, the whole park wouldn't have the same feeling. It would still be there, would function, but you wouldn't feel the same way about it.
Often the wolves may be traveling a couple of kilometers away, and we may think of them as single wolves out there, but they're actually in touch with each other. They know where each other are. Their trails may braid back and forth now and again. They're really hunting as one unit. And then vocal communication is something that has really intrigued us over the years. Each individual wolf has its own signature in it in terms of the harmonic overtones. So wolves have differences, just like you could identify two different singing humans, singing the same song, you know the different person, you identify them on the basis of their harmonic overtones. Wolves have their own harmonic overtones. But most interesting is we discovered that the wolf's ear, its ability to differentiate these overtones, is much more sensitive than the human ear. So they know when they hear a howl, whether it's a member of their own pack or whether it's some other wolf from another pack.
We have found that when two wolves have been giving the same resonant deep howls but haven't been together and eventually do come together, if one is a subordinate animal, it'll change the howl it's eliciting to a far more treble, timorous howl, and not have the resonant tones in it. We found that when a wolf is killed, that the other animals grieve for it. We call this a mourn howl. It definitely descends in scale and has a very, very definitive sound of its own.
It's always fresh and always exciting to hear that voice of the wilderness. We still want to turn off our science thinking sometimes and just sit there quietly and watch the moonlight across the water and just listen to it.
It is the wolf that makes Algonquin Park wild. It reminds us of our own roots as the greatest predator of the wilderness. Nature's harshest rules are rarely seen by visitors to the park. Neither are the unforgiving laws of the men who made it. Until 1958, wolves inside its boundaries were hunted almost to extinction by the park's own wardens. Even here, the perception of raw, untamed nature is not the reality. The park itself was created by lumber barons, and for over a century, logging within its boundaries has never stopped. Hunting is also allowed in about 40% of the park's territory, although the wolf is not one of the hunted. But outside the park, wolves are still killed indiscriminately. As they track prey animals into the surrounding farmlands, old attitudes still prevail. The only good wolf is a dead wolf, even if it's a red wolf, one of the rarest animals on Earth.
In this population, one of the most important discoveries of the research is that the main cause of death is humans. Close to 70% are caused by humans. And this is a park where they're supposed to be protected.
Oh, there, that's a really good signal.
More than half this population, which is about 150 wolves in late winter, spend some time outside the park. Outside the park, there are no game laws whatsoever to prevent their killing. People can kill them in any amount, in any time, anywhere, and not even report the kill.
Are you getting it to the left or to the right of the water?
Straight towards it. There are people that are killing wolves out there just because they hate them. The fur isn't worth anything. They just leave the carcasses in the bush and feel they've done a social service by getting rid of a wolf.
Towards the water or away from the water? When the European colonizers first came to North America, they came from Europe with the attitude that wolves were evil. They were the manifest evil. And so they tried to eliminate them because they were their competitor. Oh, it's a small animal.
It hasn't decomposed. Surprising considering the warmth.
Look at the tail.
It's got mange.
Basically, Ontario has the laxest laws for protecting wolves anywhere in North America or in the world apart from Russia. As far as killing wolves, you don't need to have anything but a small game license. A landowner can kill them in any amount at any time of year without any bag limit. And the same goes for a person with a small game license. You have to have a license for killing a bear, you have to have a license for killing a moose, a deer, even a raccoon. Can we not give the wolf the same amount of respect as we are for the rest of the animals within this system?
Why is it that we love to hate the wolf, and at the same time we're drawn by its lonely howl? Every year in late August, hundreds of people travel to the park for a late-night wolf howl. It's a sign that attitudes may be changing.
If wolves don't answer back, it does not mean that wolves are not here. It means they could be here and they're choosing not to answer back, or they have been here today, they're off hunting, and may come back later on this evening. No matter if the howl is held on the side of a busy highway or if it's held on a very quiet back road in the park, it doesn't matter. It's the sound of the animal that really ties the people to the wilderness that the park really supports. It's a mythical animal. It's an animal that people still fear and misunderstand. So to have a chance of going somewhere and actually hearing a wolf howl, that is a really big thrill for most people. Twice on howls right here, we had a wolf come out. We actually heard her walking in the woods beside us, and it came up between the cars as we were leaving. Twice we saw a wolf from this very site. Outside the park, there still remains a fairly strong anti-wolf sentiment, and that certainly, I think, has been softened over the last few decades by the park's public wolf howl program. Not only is it educating people, but it's showing local people that the wolves are a major draw, and that means an economic gain for them if they are smart about it.
If you consider the wolf as a beautiful animal, it's a distillate of wilderness. It lifts your spirits. You have an empathy with that animal. Also, it is a reflection on how comfortable we are with the wilderness. If you're comfortable of being out there in the darkness and you hear that sound, to you it's almost a communion with nature. If you're not comfortable with being in the wilderness, if you're frightened of the dark, if you're frightened of what's out there, then that is a harrowing sound, it's a harrowing experience.
Spring is a time of rebirth in the wilderness. As the snow melts, animals awaken from their long winter's night to feast once again on the bounty of a new day. As winter gives way to spring, the residue of nature's most unforgiving season is revealed. A young wolf, too small and weak to survive the harsh cold, like many of the myths about Algonquin Park, is not what it appears to be.
No, it doesn't have any broken ribs. It doesn't have any broken legs, and basically no skeletal injuries on this side.
No, it looks fairly intact. The head is all intact, the head area here.
It's got lots of flesh on its shoulders. I don't think it's starved.
Look at that nose. Now that is not a wolf nose. That's a coyote nose. And these animals are losing a lot of their genetic integrity. This animal is far more coyote-like than wolf-like.
And yet it's an Algonquin Park wolf, even though it's died out in the farmland, and it's the future of the Algonquin Park wolf population. It's hard to think of this being an efficient predator on moose. It's just too small. In the years of our study, in just 14 years, the percent of females less than 50 pounds is statistically greater, so the animals are getting smaller. Skull sizes are shrinking as well. And genetically, the geneticists tell us of the genetic evidence that there's an increase in, using a genetics term, coyote-type haplotypes in the population rather than wolf-type. That's increased 30% since 1960, so that's pretty frightening. So what we're seeing here is the genetic erosion of the Algonquin wolf.
That tail's a little frozen. Rigidity.
Just get the hips in, I can't hold it much longer.
Okay.
So he's spent a short life we've known him, crossing an awful lot of roads and around a fair amount of settlement, which is more coyote-like than wolf-like.
Well, he's come a fair ways from Mud Turtle Lake.
A third of the population dies every year. The recruitment back into the population of young animals is about 21%. You model that in any population model, as we have with other scientists, and it shows extinction of the population within a very few decades. So it's very clear that if the levels of human mortality continue in Algonquin Park as they have in the past, this population is going to go down the tube. And as it goes down the tube, it's not just this population, it's a distinct species of mammal I mean, we who provide expertise to all the other countries in the world on managing wildlife, we think we're so enlightened and so on. Are we going to stand back and let a major mammal species go extinct? Now, unless something's done in Algonquin Park, our prediction from our research is that's what's going to happen.
John and Mary Theberge are leaving Algonquin Park for the last time. Their research is complete, and although their conclusions have stirred up a controversy, subsequent studies have all supported their bottom line. The wolf of Algonquin is the purest genetic form of red wolf in the world, and on the brink of extinction. In North America, there has never been a documented case of wolves hunting and killing a human being. Yet no more controversial animal lives. None is more misunderstood. What do you hear in the howl of the wolf? Is it the haunting song of the wild, or your worst nightmare? Either way, today its howl has changed to a whimper, and before it falls completely silent, we should all listen more carefully.
In a remote corner of Canada, an amazing secret is being revealed. An animal that modern science had no idea existed. A new culture of wolves. Once the Earth's greatest four-legged land predator roamed the entire northern hemisphere. But its relationship with humans is like oil and water, and for centuries it was the wolf who became the hunted. Everywhere, that is, except here.
This is a place where you're not likely to be killed by a human being, in great contrast to everywhere else where wolves still exist today.
They may not be living exactly as they were 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, but what has evolved has been a natural evolution.
Lost in time, in one of the last wild places on Earth, is it possible that here, and only here, wolves still live the way wolves once everywhere did? How unique are they? How have they survived? What are the secrets of the coast wolf? On the extreme edge of northwest British Columbia, the Pacific Ocean collides with the coast mountains to create a global hotspot of biodiversity. Hugging 500 kilometers of coastline are the most pristine rainforest left in North America, and an archipelago of over 1,000 islands. It is one of nature's final frontiers. But so far, no one really knows what here is. It has never been fully studied by science. For the past decade, Ian McAllister, a founder of the Rain Coast Conservation Society, has navigated thousands of kilometers of this coastline, fighting to save these ancient rainforests from industrial logging. His preferred weapon is science, and uses it to learn how this poorly understood ecosystem works, and when it doesn't.
When we first started work up here, it was really based on exploration. There was a fair amount of work being done on salmon, the yearly counts of salmon, but for virtually all of the terrestrial components to this coastline, there was very, very little information.
At over 60,000 square kilometers, this is an area larger than Ireland, so it's easy to understand why information was scarce. Rain Coast first decided to study grizzly bears, a key species and an entry point to understanding the entire ecosystem. But instead of answers, they discovered a new mystery.
We realized that there were some big gaps in our knowledge, in particular the outer coastal island areas. And the reason for that is that we would have grizzly bear biologists working in these valleys, and they wouldn't see any grizzly bears, they would be seeing wolves.
Okay, there's three really easy, almost...
What puzzled them most was how the wolves got there.
But really this conflict exists with the forest companies.
Some islands were 15 kilometers from the mainland, and it was thought that wolves didn't like to swim. It was a mystery begging for an answer. And so in 2000, McAllister, along with Dr. Paul Paquette, one of the world's leading wolf experts, and Chris Darramont, a biologist at the University of Victoria, spearheaded the Rainforest Wolf Project.
We think that historically the coastal wolf was probably found from northern California to southeastern Alaska. What makes this place so special is that those wolves are still here. And they're here in pretty much intact habitat that we can't find anywhere else.
Wind's in our favor, and the rain really keeps the smell close to the ground and doesn't move around too much, so it's maybe a good time to see some wolves.
It would become the most comprehensive study of its kind. Hundreds of days were spent in the field, but what really excited these scientists was how the coast wolf had adapted to the sea.
I've never seen wolves elsewhere swim the way that the wolves here do, and do it regularly and seemingly without concern. And it's because water is so predominant in their environment, it's everywhere, and they've adapted to it.
Wolves everywhere in the world like to move. In North America, they've been known to travel up to 100,000 square kilometers to find food or a mate. Here, they just learned how to swim for it. But the coast wolf's amazing adaptation to water didn't begin or end on a beach.
Before the work we did, nobody had systematically cataloged what the wolves were doing and how effective they were at fishing and so on. And that's a new contribution. And what we found is that they're very, very good preying on spawning salmon.
The scientists also learned that fishing season was the perfect time to observe wolves in the open. The annual salmon spawn is a time of détente between animals. Everything is focused on fattening up for winter, and the feast is endless. But coast wolves, it seems, are picky eaters.
If this fish is swimming up the creek, wolves will just trot in and grab right here with their teeth and just yank, up to a 10, 15, 20 pound salmon out of the creek, and it's still writhing back and forth, and they'll flop it down, they'll put their paws on it, and they'll just open it right up and take off the head.
The scientists believed that they ate only the heads to avoid harmful parasites in the body. It was more evidence of a long-term relationship between wolves and the sea. But how long had it been here? To find out, they had to travel back in time.
We actually follow in the footsteps of wolves, pick up what they leave behind, these scaps, and extract and amplify the DNA to ask questions about their evolutionary history and about which wolf was here, where, and when.
DNA, the double helix of the genetic code, the fundamental building block of life. What could it reveal about the secret life of the coast wolf? On the remote northwest coast of British Columbia, researchers had spent years unlocking the secrets of a new culture of wolves. Part of their success was due to some unique non-invasive study techniques. In the past, science had often relied on traps or tranquilizers to study animals up close. But Paul Paquette and Chris Darrimont believed that seeing wasn't everything. To learn even more, they collected scat-based DNA. In the human world, genetic fingerprinting has proven everything from guilt or innocence to the birth parents of a lost child. In the wolf world, thousands of scat samples were collected to help determine population sizes, how often wolves travel between islands, even its evolutionary history.
Many people wonder, well, how on earth is there DNA in scat? And what happens when the food that the wolf has eaten makes its way through the digestive tract? It picks up cells from the intestinal lining, and out those cells come with the scat. So in the scat here, there are literally thousands of skin cells from the wolf, and of course in every cell is the DNA. But this is the first stage of a complicated process.
The second stage is 1,000 miles in a world far removed from the British Columbia coast. Here, Jennifer Leonard, a geneticist at the University of California in Los Angeles, uses more cutting-edge science to decipher secrets hidden in the coast wolf's DNA.
Once we get the feces in the lab, we first extract DNA from the feces, and then we take that and we can sequence it and read each base pair individually. And once we get all those sequences, we can compare them with the other wolves from all over the world.
It was the ultimate secret. Researchers knew the coast wolf was unique, but to find out how unique it really was, Leonard analyzed sequences in its genetic code called haplotypes.
A haplotype is just a version of genetic material, usually DNA. In this case, what we're studying is the mitochondrial DNA, which is a kind of DNA that's only passed from the mother to all of her children.
Inside the womb, as cells replicate during reproduction, genetic code in the mother's mitochondrial DNA is transferred. As this cycle repeats itself over thousands of years, mutations occur and are inherited as a new haplotype. More haplotypes in the DNA of an animal population means the more genetically diverse it is, something that can only occur undisturbed in the wild over a long period of time. But wolves have been hunted for centuries, and although genetic fingerprinting has identified 35 different haplotypes, as populations decreased, so did the number of mothers. So far, the largest number of haplotypes found in a single population is 5, and that made Leonard's results incredible, almost impossible.
All of Canada and Alaska that's been surveyed only have 5 haplotypes. So finding 14 haplotypes in just the coastal wolves of BC was very surprising. We expected 1 and maybe 2 haplotypes, and having 14 was vastly beyond what we imagined.
All these are North American wolves.
The results didn't prove the coast wolf had changed. Incredibly, they proved that it hadn't. But it had changed in the rest of North America, where hunting and habitat loss had decimated populations.
It is becoming more clear that the state of very high genetic diversity that we find in British Columbia is most likely the ancestral state, and that it isn't that the British Columbian wolves are strangely high in genetic diversity, but that the other populations are strangely low.
It was stunning clinical proof of what had been observed in the field, an ancient wolf living in the 21st century. But why here? As wild as it is, humans had lived here too for thousands of years. Except that here, a unique relationship exists between wolves and humans. They share the same territory, and wolves are not hunted for any reason.
We're all related to wolves. If I come into the company of a wolf, I'm not to harm it. I'm to speak to it, even if from my heart. And I'm to explain to it why I'm in its company. And I ask it for protection. We regard them as our brothers and our sisters.
Our working hypothesis at this time is that these wolves have maintained genetic diversity because they've not been persecuted to the extent of wolves in other wolves in North America and throughout the world.
It was something that couldn't be said about wolves anywhere else.
This is a different wolf. They've sort of gone on their own evolutionary route here on the coast. And there's probably hundreds or thousands of other taxa or organisms that are also different on the coast. So in that way, the wolves become an entry point to understanding a bigger system.
But after an exhaustive study of the coast wolf, scientists are now in a race against time to protect this entire ecosystem. 50% of the British Columbia coast has already been logged. Soon, it could happen here too.
When you consider that this is the genetic evolution, the product of genetic evolution spanning 70, 80 million years, and yet we can take down so much forest in such a short period of time, that definitely feels wrong.
Nowhere else in the world does an intact wolf culture exist. But as rare as it is, just like its home range, the last temperate rainforest on Earth, is this where it will make its final stand? It was time to leave science behind and explore on our own the secret world of nature's greatest land predator. Raw, remote, and so far almost untouched by humans, British Columbia's northwest coast may be the most pristine ecosystem on Earth. There are no roads, and the forest canopy is too thick, so our search for the coast wolf will be done exclusively by boat. The scientists who studied wolves here spent almost 5 years and traveled thousands of kilometers. Our crew has only a few weeks to find and film these rare, elusive animals. It's a tough challenge. Wolves are notoriously difficult to film. They travel vast distances, rarely stay in one place long, and are extremely nervous of any human contact. The home range of the coast wolf may be unique, but there are no guarantees they will be in the same locations they were studied last year. Traveling deep into this 1,000-island archipelago is a journey back in time. On the surface, it's easy to understand how these wolves have withstood the impacts of progress. Here it seems everything has. Rugged, primitive, and extremely difficult to access, it's too isolated for hunting and still too expensive to log. It's a wild, ancient world where time, it seems, has literally stood still. Once old-growth northern boreal rainforests, the rarest forest type on Earth, carpeted the entire west coast from California to Alaska. Today, the last virgin stands of Sitka spruce and western red cedar exist only here. Some are over 1,000 years old. As far as we know, wolves have lived here too for about 10,000 years. However, new science has suggested that the last great ice age may have missed the far western edge of North America. So it's possible that they've lived here even longer. We've traveled north for over a week, and every promising site has been a disappointment. Evidence of wolves is everywhere, but there are no fresh tracks or kills. Now the first big storm of the fall is brewing in the Pacific, and our crew is getting frustrated. But at least now it's also obvious why this coastal ecosystem is one massive rainforest. They land on an island about 1 kilometer from the mainland, and our cameraman, a veteran wildlife cinematographer, decides to try a howl. And suddenly, there they are, an alpha male and 2 curious teenagers. Their fur is the ochre color unique to the coast wolf. Healthy but nervous, they retreat quickly into the forest as soon as they catch our scent. It's unlikely they'll be back. After 100 tough, wet kilometers, a 30-second glimpse is no success at all. And so the crew continues north to an island they've heard of near Canada's border with Alaska. This island is almost 20 kilometers from the mainland, an almost impossible distance. But as science has already confirmed, this wolf likes to swim and fish for its dinner. It's also possible that they rode the tides to travel this far out, and now it may be too far to swim back. Finally, our crew finds the evidence they've been looking for: fresh salmon carcass. There are wolves here, and they've been fishing on this estuary today. By nightfall, an observation blind has been set up, and the crew settles in. Suddenly, the wait is over. In the black of night, our cameraman is caught off guard. He's alone in the blind, and it seems that the resident wolves have decided to let this intruder know whose territory this is.
Okay, I've got these wolves surrounding me here. There's 5 wolves, and they're not afraid of me.
He may have a night vision camera, but he's still at a distinct disadvantage.
I've got the night vision on, I bear sprayed one of them, and they're still circling. I'm probably the only other large mammal here, other than the wolves.
It may be the first time wolves anywhere have been filmed at night, behavior never observed before, and these wolves are behaving boldly. It's an unexpected, unnerving success, and for the rest of this night, there will be no sleep. For all animals that live on this small island outpost, this estuary is the source of all life. It looks as if a family of 4 wolves lives here, an adult or alpha male, 2 females, and a lone pup. They know our camera is located just across the estuary, but clearly they don't seem to care. If they did, they'd be invisible. But this pack looks relaxed. They're the ones in charge here. In the fall, life on this island is as good as it gets. A time when wolves can eat, sleep, and play all day. Wolves are extremely social, and family is everything. Playtime reinforces the bond and relieves any tensions in the pack. Since time began here, life on the estuary has depended on 2 constant primordial rhythms: the rise and fall of the sun and the tides. On average, these are 23-foot tides, rising and falling every 6 hours. At over 4 feet an hour, water rushes in and out constantly. Only at the peak of high tide does the ocean seem to take a break. It's a rare moment of calm and a good time for harp seals to navigate upstream to fish. While ducks, geese, and many other shorebirds patiently wait for the inevitable. And then the ocean rushes out again. This intertidal zone between land and sea is a rich feeding ground. It's good hunting for the birds, although shellfish stranded by the tide always make for a challenging meal. For about 8 months of the year, the wolves here are also quite capable of scrounging a meal from these shallow tidal pools. But in the fall, they too feast in this stream. Every study of the coast wolf has revealed the same thing. Although the bulk of their diet is similar to their continental cousins, like all animals here, they eat a lot of salmon. Coast wolves will hunt deer, even bear. But on this island, where they seem to be the only large land mammals, without this annual surge of salmon, they couldn't survive. And right now, this stream is packed with them, eager to spawn. After a 4-year journey across thousands of kilometers of Pacific Ocean, these mature salmon are exhausted, and the wolves pick them off with ease. In the native legends of the Northwest, it is the raven who brought light to the world, breathed life into man, and convinced the salmon to come to this coast. Now the raven watches the wolf closely, who, in tribute, always leaves it a meal. Thousands of years of evolution has taught the great blue heron to stand perfectly still and wait for a fish to come to it. And so does this adult female. These salmon weigh about 15 pounds, but the wolves make quick work of them, puncturing the skull and killing them instantly. As science has confirmed, they eat only the heads. Some think it's because they can't digest parasites in the body cavity, but the head does contain the highest fat content. As fearless as they are, the adults have remained protective of their pup and kept it far away from our camera. But it's not just these new, unknown intruders that worry them. The alpha male has spied a lone wolf entering the estuary. It's probably just looking for a free lunch. But the alpha is in no mood to share his fish. They may have fought before, or perhaps the lone wolf is naturally cautious. Either way, he won't confront the alpha today. An alpha will defend his pack or territory against any intruder. It's another behavior that's rarely been filmed, and incredibly, this alpha knows we're watching. Once again, after dark, the wolves grow even more confident. Darkness is their true domain, and if our crew is smart, they'll retreat to their tent and wait for morning. But before they can react, the pack is back.
I've got the pack of wolves here again. And they're creeping around here somewhere. I can hear them. Whoa. It's all right. You're okay. Let's be friends. You settle down. Twigs snapping. Of course, around my tent. Get out of here.
More than any other animal, the wolf is a creature of myth and mystery. From the Grimm brothers to Walt Disney, the big bad wolf has had a unique grip in our imagination. But in the native legends of coastal British Columbia, wolves are neither wicked nor violent. One legend tells the tale of a hunter who lived on these islands. Every night he left his wife, only to return at dawn with fresh game. His wife wondered why he was such a great hunter, and soon learned he could transform himself into a wolf, the supreme hunter of the night. At night, wolves are indeed transformed. In a world dependent on scent and sound, their amazing eyesight makes nighttime their time. It's now pitch black. Wolves have never been filmed feeding at night, and they go about their business as if it were broad daylight, hunting, fishing, and eating. The wolfman's wife bore him 4 children, all wolves. But one night she heard laughter in her home. The pups had removed their fur cloaks and become human. The woman felt deceived that her children too could be transformed, and in her anger she threw 3 furs into the fire. The 4th pup escaped and became the coast wolf. But the others, with no fur for warmth or strong jaws and swift feet, remained merely human. At night, in the company of wolves, it's easy to feel merely human.
Where? Can you see with that camera? Hey, Wolf. Hey, Wolf. Just chill. Just get the bear spray ready.
No other animal would investigate humans like this, actively, curiously, and in total control.
Oh my God.
Here, perhaps only here, the historic relationship between wolves and humans has been reversed. Because here, it's the humans' turn to be wary of the wolves.
Just chill. Was she growling?
Yeah.
That was a growl, dude. Okay. Watch my back. See her? Yeah. Watch that. That's the mother. Where? Right here. Got her.
For a lot of reasons, sunrise is now our camera crew's favorite time of day. It's also low tide, and with the salmon exposed and vulnerable, eagles and shorebirds have arrived right on time. And so have the wolves. But today is different. For the first time, the whole pack has come to fish as a family. This female is the pack teenager. She's at least 2 years old, but still an awkward hunter. Young coast wolves have a much lower mortality rate than wolves on the continent, but they still need to eat about 3 times as much protein as adults. The rich seafood diet here explains a lot about their high survival rate. But fishing skills are not instinctive. The alpha male shows his daughter how it's done. Wolves are the most intelligent of all land predators, but they still need to learn how to be wolves. And this teenager is learning well. Physically, an adult wolf is the size of a large dog, but a lot leaner. These are endurance animals built for the long-distance kill. Packs hunt by running their prey down, pursuing it until it's too exhausted to resist. But for a coast wolf, at least during the salmon run, there's no need for a long hunt. Here, the fishing is very good. The pup of the pack is about a year old, and he has a lot to learn. Right now, he doesn't even want to get his feet wet. His mother waits and watches patiently. Like all mothers, she knows he can do it. And she's right. He quickly dashes across and gets a warm nip of approval as a reward. The mother, too, is a proficient deadly hunter. Now it's the pup's turn to watch closely and then practice his own technique. Adults can go days without eating, but when they can, they will eat up to 1/5 their body weight, or about 18 pounds at one time. To survive the lean winter months ahead, gorging now could make the difference between life or death. But in good times or bad, a pack will rarely fight over food. And adults will never snatch food from a pup. If this one doesn't catch on soon and start fishing on his own, he too might not survive. Odds are he will, just like his sister has. Wolves are nature's prime social carnivores. Its behavior totally unique to wolves. For all others on this island, it's everyone for himself. No one knows how long this pack has been here, but as long as it has, it's depended on the sea for survival. It's the living proof our crew was looking for, of a unique ancient culture of wolves alive and well on Canada's remote northwest coast. After weeks filming wolves on a tiny island in the remote northwest corner of British Columbia, our camera crew is starting to believe that it's the wolves who are watching them. The best example so far of their uncanny confidence is to allow their pup to play exposed and in broad daylight. It's clear these wolves have no reflexive fear of humans. But we're not so sure that our humans still don't have a reflexive fear of wolves. Fall is advancing rapidly towards winter, while the salmon run is slowing down. Spawned out and exhausted, they make an easy meal. Another scientific breakthrough here is a new understanding of the contribution salmon make to the health of the rainforest itself. As their carcasses rot, nutrients, especially nitrogen, are deposited in the soil. This annual exchange between land and sea is a good reason why these rainforests are so fertile. The pup too has progressed quickly, and this fish is the first he's caught all on his own. If he's going to fatten up to survive the winter ahead, he needs to hurry up and catch even more. Soon enough, the spawn will end, and all the wolves here are now eating as much as they can. A wolf's natural life is about 10 years, but many die prematurely from disease or infection. They can bleed to death from a cut on the tongue. A sharp fish bone or a porcupine quill can infect and kill them. As a result, it's quite possible that by spring, it will be the young wolves who survived. For now, all their parents can do is teach them everything they can, as fast as they can. Wolves use 3 known methods of communication: howling, posturing, like baring their teeth, and scent marking. Scent marking is poorly understood by science. We think it's used to warn both the pack and intruders where a home territory begins and ends. But if this message delivered personally is too subtle for our crew, the Alpha has another way of letting us know whose island this is. The crew has set up this microphone to record the natural sound of the estuary.
Hey! That's enough. That's enough! Don't make me come out there.
The jaws of a wolf can exert a crushing pressure of 1,500 pounds per square inch, more than twice that of a large dog.
Hey! Go eat the fish.
The manual doesn't say how much pressure the microphone can resist, but we're pretty sure it's less than 1,500 pounds.
Hey! Hey now, hey now. Don't eat the mic.
The Alpha makes short work of it. It's a $5,000 meal. The crew sets the microphone up a second time, and again the Alpha approaches. But this time, he's figured it out. To claim his prize, he needs to cut the microphone cable.
Okay, I gotta locate the mic here. It's not listening at all.
It's another amazing display of behavior and intelligence. It's also the clearest message yet that wolves are the dominant species here. But after sunset, the pack has another surprise.
Don't be surprised if they come around tonight.
Almost every night, our crew has had an unnerving visit from the pack that's made sleep a luxury. The weather hasn't helped either. Their main night vision camera has been damaged by rain and salt water. Now, a single backup camera is all they have left.
What's that noise?
But tonight, the pack isn't interested in the crew. They're interested in the crew's inflatable Zodiac.
Where? Holy shit. He's going to town on the Zodiac. Grab the handheld. Watch that. Can't get her. That's our hose from the boat. Man, this guy likes to chew on shit. He's just sending messages. Where's the other one? Whoa. How you doing, big guy? Hey there. You're a pretty wolf. Stand by. Stand by. Just hang on. Okay, I think the show's over.
Now it's the crew's turn to be curious. Why would the wolves attack their boat? Chewed up microphones, a damaged Zodiac. We may have just worn out our welcome. And the next morning, it is over. Time to let these wolves get on with simply being wolves. Their future, however, remains a big question mark. But if humans don't empty these waters of salmon or destroy these rainforests with commercial logging, or a natural disaster or disease doesn't upset their island paradise, then they just might survive. The coast wolf is the rarest wolf on Earth, because isolation has allowed it to live just as it has for thousands of years. But ironically, its best chance to survive thousands more will be with the help of something uniquely human: a bit of luck.